good job celebrating the music ministry on this morning. I want you all to know that I didn't settle into my sermon title until 11 o'clock on Friday. And they were able to pull that together for this Sunday morning. So we celebrate you. You didn't even know? To Luke, the 19th chapter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Luke 19, beginning at verse number 1. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." I must stay at your house today. Let us pray. God, we thank you so much for the way the Spirit has moved in this place. We thank you, God, that you've moved through the music. We thank you, God, that you've moved through prayer. We thank you, God, that you've moved through the hearts of your people. And so, God, now we ask that your Holy Spirit would move through this preaching moment, for we've just received confirmation, God, that this is your word for your people. And so, God, I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart will be acceptable for thee, for you are my strength and my Redeemer. And it's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. If I were to ask you, who do you think knows you better than anyone else? Who would your answer be? For some, we have a parent who is living. You might say your mother or your father, especially your mother if you're blessed to still have her in your life. Some relationships between mothers and sons and mothers and daughters are so tight that your mother is that place of unconditional love, that place that you share, where you can share everything and anything, that place where you can say without a shadow of a doubt that my mother understands me if no one else does. For some, it may be your relationship with your father. For others, it's a brother or a sister who might be the person who knows you best. Some sisters share everything, things that they wouldn't even share with their parents. Brothers do the same thing sometimes, but maybe a little less so between brothers and sisters. However, I do find sometimes if the sister's a little bit older than the brother, sometimes they do share everything just like they were brothers or sisters. For some of you, the person who knows you best is that friend, that girlfriend or that guy friend that you share everything with, that person that you share your highs and your lows of life with. And then for some of you, the person who knows you best is your spouse. He or she is the person that knows you better than you know yourself sometimes. And sometimes they like to remind you that they know you better than you know yourself. It depends on how long you've been married. They know the good, they know the bad, and they know the ugly about who we are. Well, this morning I want to suggest to you that despite how much your mama or your daddy or your sister or your brother or your girlfriend or your guy friend or even your spouse might know about you, that Jesus knows you better than any human being who has ever been in your life and who is presently in your life. This morning I want to suggest to you that he knows your name. He knows your name. The biblical character Zacchaeus is the star of your text today, as recorded in Luke 19, verses 1 through 10. Luke 19 is a continuation of Jesus' journey to Jerusalem in and around Jericho. He's on his way to a fate that he must meet. We know this because if you look at verse 1 of our text, it says that he entered Jericho and was passing through it. It just says he, it doesn't use any name, it just says he entered Jericho and was passing through it. That's because this is a continuation of what happened in the prior chapter in Luke 18, where Jesus is referenced by name. He was on a journey to Jerusalem and he was doing some healing work around Jericho. Jesus had a relationship with Jericho, the New Testament location of Jericho. It was near Jericho that Jesus was baptized in the Jordan. It was near Jericho on the adjacent mountain range that Jesus was tempted by the devil. And it was also on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho that Jesus had the setting for his well-known parable about the Good Samaritan. Jesus had a relationship with the area around Jericho. And so at the end of Luke 18, we see Jesus near Jericho as he's about to heal a blind beggar. One who shouted out to Jesus as he was passing by, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Even though he was blind and could not see, he wanted to see Jesus. He cried out to Jesus for Jesus to have mercy on him, while his friends were telling him to clamp it down, to keep it quiet, don't bother him. And even though they were telling him to keep it down, he kept yelling louder and louder because he wanted to see Jesus. He wanted to be healed. He wanted to be made whole. And so Jesus healed him right there on the spot at the end of Luke 18. And so this Jesus, who is now on the outskirts of Jericho, finds his way into the city of Jericho. And he's got some more work to do. And this time it's in the life of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is one who's introduced at the beginning of the text. Right out of the box, it tells you all about who he was. It says that he was a chief tax collector and he was rich. He was a chief tax collector and he was rich. The thing that I want to point out to you today, the first thing from our text that we see, is that he knows your fame and he knows your game. He knows your fame and he knows your game. Fame can be positive or it can be negative, just like game can be positive or it can be negative. In this instance, I think that it was a lump of both with our main character, Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector. And what we need to understand is that as a tax collector, he had a reputation. Those who were tax collectors had reputations. And as we talked about in Bible study last week, every church has a reputation in the community. And every one of us has a reputation in the community as well. And it was no different with Zacchaeus. He was one who had a reputation. Well, what was his reputation? His reputation was that he was a chief tax collector. Well, what did that mean? I learned a lot as I began to study what it meant to be a chief tax collector. Obviously, from the name, we know that it means that he was one who would collect taxes and tolls and prescribe taxes and tariffs from those who were in the community. But what it also meant was that he was an independent contractor for the Roman government. What does that mean? That means that he would take his own funds and he would pay all the taxes for the area. And then he had to get his funds back from those in the area. So he would advance his money and pay it to the Romans, and the way he got paid was you and I had to pay the taxes back. Well, how would he make any money on that if you're just giving him back what he paid? You had to put something on top of what you were supposed to give as a taxpayer. And not only to pay him, but he had tax collectors who were working for him. He was the chief tax collector, so he had to pay a tax collector to collect the money that he wanted to get. Do you see what I'm saying? There was your taxes to the IRS. You've got somebody telling you, you've got to pay more so that I can get paid, so that he can get paid. That was his gain, and that was his fame. Everybody knew who Zacchaeus was. He was a fraud. He was a thief. He was one who cheated people out of their money. What's your fame? And what's your gain? Are you famous or have gain related to how many people you think you can handle at one time, brothers? Are your fame and your gain related to how you can manipulate money out of that old man? Is your fame or gain related to being a cheat in school, at work, or in the business field? Is your fame or gain related to the drugs and the drink that you used to drink? Or maybe you still do. Is your fame or gain simply that you have the nastiest mouth, a bad disposition, an arrogant attitude, a self-centered in nature, that you're the one that nobody wants to be around? We all have a fame and we all have a gain, and everybody knows what our reputation is. But how many of us know that despite having a negative fame and having a shady gain, all of us still have a desire to see Jesus? It is the very reason that we're here in this place today. Because we could be anywhere right now doing anything. We could be out brunching, we could be out jogging, we could be out playing golf, we could be doing anything. But there's something that made us want to come into this place and find out a little bit more about Jesus, no matter what we are and no matter what our reputation is. Zacchaeus was no different. In verse 3 of our text, it says that he was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was short in stature. Yes, he was actually physically short in stature. I think I heard Reverend Gant say out my corner of my ear, he was a little man. He was a little man. But I want to suggest to you that he wasn't just physically short, that he had some shortcomings. And we all have some shortcomings. And that's the reason why we always want to see Jesus. Because we're trying to grow in stature and in wisdom and in the love and knowledge of Jesus Christ. We all have shortcomings. But our text says that Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus. He was seeking Jesus. Are you seeking Jesus today? Did you come here because you wanted to find out more and more and more about Jesus? Or did you come because you wanted to hear the choir, or it's your Sunday to meet with your club and you're bored? Why did you come here? Because we ought to come because we're trying to see Jesus. Well, our text says that Zacchaeus was willing to make a fool of himself for Christ. It says that because he was short in stature, he ran ahead of Jesus and he got up into a sycamore tree because he knew that Jesus was passing by. Well, let me share this with you. A person in Jesus' time and custom, a person like Zacchaeus who had all this money and wealth and had a reputation, would never be seen running in public. It was undignified for a man to run in public. And so you see this man of high stature in the community who is running to try to see Jesus. What does that tell us about the Jesus that he knew was passing by? That he was willing to be a fool for Christ so that he might be able to see him. And not only did he run to try to see him, but it says he went up in the sycamore tree. That clue is there because it's important. This particular type of sycamore tree had figs on it. These were cheap figs that poor people ate. And so he climbed up in a tree that was associated with poor people, even though he was wealthy. How many of us are willing to get beyond our stature, our status in the community, and leave it all on the line for Jesus? I don't care who sees me run to the altar. I don't see who cares to see me stand up and praise God. I don't care who sees me giving my very all to God, because I'm willing to give it all to him. He was willing to be a fool for Christ. And that's what Christ calls for all of us, to be willing to be a fool for him, to be willing to go among our friends and look silly. I was at homecoming last week, and one of my classmates got sick during homecoming. And they were tailgating, and they were tailgating. And they said, could you go and pray for her? Well, these are the people I was in school with for 4 years. We still have that mentality of being a 18 to 22-year-old, and they're going to judge me. But Jesus requires us to let our light shine no matter where we go. And so all I did was ask him, could you just hold the liquor back for a minute? And let me pray with her right at the tailgate. Let me lay hands on her right here at the tailgate. And then when I'm done, you guys go back and you do whatever you want to do. We've got to be willing to be a fool in front of our friends and our family, because we've got to share the message of Jesus Christ everywhere we go. And so the act of praying for her publicly will do more than any sermon that I could ever preach to them. And we all find ourselves in situations where we have to step out on faith, no matter what our fame is, no matter what our game is, and let somebody know that I'm willing to be a fool for Jesus Christ. Not only does he know your fame and he knows your game, but he also actually does know your name. Look at the text. In verse 5, it says, when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. As many times as I've read this text, it never hit me. How did he know his name? How did he know that his name was Zacchaeus? Nowhere in the text does it say that Jesus had been previously introduced to him. Maybe it was just left out the text, and maybe because he was around Jericho all the time that he'd run into him before. But that's not in my text, so I can't draw that conclusion. But what I do know is that he had a reputation in the community. Everybody knew him to be a tax cheat, and a fraud. He had a reputation that went before him. And notwithstanding his reputation, Jesus said, Zacchaeus, I must stay at your house today. I don't know about you, but that gets me excited that the Jesus that I love, even though you might have a bad name and you have bad fame, you have a shady reputation, that he says, I've got to stay at your house today. He's not talking about your address where you live. He's talking about your spiritual address. I've got to stay at your house today. I know what they say about you. I know where you've been. When I passed through Jericho just for you, and today I've got to stay at your house. He knew him. He knew him on a spiritual level as well. The scriptures tell us in Luke 12:7, but even the hairs on your head are counted. He knows every hair that you have on your head. He knows when you breathe. He knows when you exhale. He knows when you close your eyes. He knows what you're thinking. He knows everything about you because he created you. When he decided to blow the breath of life into your body, you became his, and he named you at that time. And his whole purpose is for him to come so that he might reside at your house. He just wants to come and stay at your house. But Revelation told us in the text that we read, behold, I stand and knock at the door. He's not going to kick your door down. He's not going to bust in your house. He's going to knock at your door. And he doesn't just knock one time. You know he comes more than one time. He comes for salvation, yes. But then he comes and knocks at your door and says, it's time for you to go to another level. I want to stay at your house, but I need you to go to another level. He knocks and he knocks, and we hear him say, I want to take you a little bit higher because I'm trying to get you ready for what I have to come. I must stay at your house today. I don't know about you, but there's some stuff that nobody else knows about me other than God. And the fact that he would want to stay at my filthy, ragged, wretched house, that he would want to abide in this temple, that he would want to be known as my Father, as he would want to be known as my Lord and Savior. He says, I have to be at your house. Well, not only does he know your game and know your fame and know your name, but he knows your shame. He knows the stuff that you've done. He knows the stuff that I've done. He knew everything that Zacchaeus had done. How do we know that he knew everything that Zacchaeus had done? Because the mere act of him going to his house took away the shame that was on his house. Wherever Jesus goes, he brings honor and he brings glory. And so by him just walking up in the house, he gave Zacchaeus some stature in the community. People were looking, the text says, and saying, he would go in his house, he would go and abide with sinners. Don't you know that Jesus has said that about every one of us that he's come to dwell in? He said, yes, I will go in his house. I will go in her house because they are new creatures in Christ. Wherever Jesus goes, we gain stature, we gain honor, we gain glory. But in order for us to get beyond our place of shame, we've got to be willing to do what Zacchaeus did. Look at how the text ends. Zacchaeus realizes, I've been a cheat, I've been a scoundrel, and I've been a thief. And he says, if I have dishonored anybody or defrauded anybody, I will give them 4 times what I have taken from them. And I will also give half of my possessions to the poor. If we're going to be real about this thing, in order for us to get rid of the shame that goes with us, we've got to be willing to get rid of that stuff that we know that we shouldn't have done. Nobody else needs to know what your shame is. Nobody else needs to know what your game is. But you've got to be willing to tell Jesus that I love you more than my reputation. I love you more than the earthly things that I've built up. I love you more than what I think I am in my own mind. And I'm willing to give everything that I have over to you. That means that before, if I was nasty and mean, I'm willing to give it up. And I'm going to be nice in Christ. If I was cheap and I wasn't willing to give to the poor, I wasn't willing to give offering, I'm going to stop closing my pockets all the time, because I now recognize that the only reason I have anything that I have is because Christ gave it to me. Where I wasn't willing to say that it was the Lord who kept me until I could find myself when I was out in the world doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, where I almost lost my life. I'm willing to say, Lord, I'm sorry for everything that I've done. He knows my shame. The text says that salvation has come to this house today. The text says that I came to find sinners. That means that when sinners roll up in the household of faith, we ought to let them be who they want to be until they find Christ Jesus. Because I got a truth to tell you. All of us in here on these pews are sinners saved by grace. We all are sinning day by day, night by night, morning to evening. But thanks be for the blood of Jesus Christ that covers our sins, that we can say that we have received salvation. We all have a name. We all have a rep in the community. But I don't know about you. I want my name to be that I'm one that's just trying to follow Jesus. I'm one who's trying to seek Jesus. I'm one who's trying to let him dwell in me. I'm one who's trying to grow day by day in the love of Christ Jesus. I want my reputation to be that I'm one who loves the Lord with my whole heart, my whole mind, and my whole spirit. I want my reputation to be that I would lay it all on the line for Jesus Christ. He knows my name. He knows my name. And don't think you're fooling anybody. Because the one who created you, he knows your name. Amen? Amen.